whole system was off. It's a bad, bad feeling. I mean, just to move your mouth, something just broke. And moving and missing a punch or throwing a punch, you could feel it jar, just jumping around.
However, Norton keeps coming at Ali, and Ali is against the rope. Not so... Ali is tired. Ali is really tired. It's bloody to left, gets in, and it's like right. He is safe.
They say that reality is stranger than fiction. Ali's fight against Chuck Wepner wasn't supposed to be anything spectacular, but a display of indomitable spirit and otherworldly toughness culminated in a moment that inspired the pivotal boxing blockbuster, Rocky.
Before we jump back into the action, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, you. We need your support to keep making the content about the sports we love. That's why we've launched the Modern Martial Artist Patreon. There, the team is bringing you 3 patron-exclusive videos each and every month. From video topic polls to watch parties, there's something on every tier to check out. But if you like what we do and want to see even more, sign up for the Modern Martial Artist Patreon today.
Fresh from his Rumble in the Jumble knockout over George Foreman, Ali was once again the baddest man on the planet. The powers that be decided that the new, and once again heavyweight champion, needed a break from world-class opposition. Ali, just like his fantasy counterpart Apollo Creed, wanted a tune-up. So, in an unexpected turn, promoters settled on part-time pugilist Chuck Wepner as Ali's next opponent. Just like the character Rocky, Wepner was, by all accounts, an unlikely heavyweight contender. The 35-year-old New Jersey native was a 6'5" brawler, known for his borderline illegal roughhousing tactics and rock-solid durability. That said, his sturdy chin needed a lot of tissue paper. His losses to George Foreman and Sonny Liston both ended because he got cut.
I think Harry Gibbs is going to stop it, and the manager's protesting. Al Braverman's protesting too.
But after stringing together enough wins, he finally cracked the heavyweight top 10, granting him a long shot, but a legitimate shot, at a world title bout. Regardless, Ali opened as such a big favorite that oddmakers wouldn't take bets on the fight. Ali was noticeably out of shape before the fight. He weighed in at the heaviest of his career thus far.
Now you're going to criticize me about how big and fat I am. I thought I was the greatest. I just hope George Foreman did.
Meanwhile, Wepner spent months in the Catskill Mountains. For the first time in his career, he had a full professional training camp. For Wepner, it was the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance he was never supposed to get. Wepner told his wife before the fight, "I want to prove I belong there." On April 24th, 1975 at the Ridgefield Coliseum in Ohio, Chuck Wepner would stun the crowd. It would become one of the most shocking moments of Ali's entire career. The first bell rang out, and Wepner stormed out of his corner to meet Ali in the center. But Ali wasn't here for a firefight, or even a real fight. He was here to put on a show. He glided across the canvas, strafing from side to side, even the slightest shuffle pulling cheers from the crowd. Even as Wepner seemed to be closing in, Ali would stop short, break his rhythm with footwork or a feint, then glide away from a befuddled Wepner. In Rocky, this is where our lovable underdog would shock the world with a stunning knockdown of the taunting Apollo Creed. But this wasn't a movie, and the real-life Muhammad Ali was simply a class above his plotting adversary, emulating Willie Pep by not throwing a single punch until near the tail end of the round. The one shot Wepner was getting through was looping rabbit punches, which was not part of Ali's script. After no intervention from referee Tony Perez, Ali went ballistic, beating the back of Wepner's head like a drum until the ref finally stepped in.
Look at Ali going to the back of the head. Referee Tony Perez will have his hands full. Ali...
Well, it was a very exciting round, and he did hit him a few times there, back of the head, but...
In the second round, Ali changed his performance, trading in dancing shoes for cement boots. He shelled up against the ropes, as he had against Foreman, shouting at Wepner, who did his best to crack through Ali's armor. Though he treated Ali like a punching bag, most of Chuck's punches looked like an exercise in futility. Ali only came to life after more punches behind the head. In his go-to strategy, he closed the round with crisp combinations that cracked at Wepner like a whip. It was just like Ali to stay defensive until the tail end of the round. He would then unleash his offense against a tired competitor, scoring more points in the last half minute than his opponent had during the entire round. And this pattern of dancing, shelling up, and stealing the end of the round would repeat well past the halfway point of the fight. Ali played the classics. He floated from pillar to post, swelling Wepner's face with pinpoint jabs, occasionally stabbing his midsection to sap his energy. When Chuck tried to return the favor, Ali remained elusive as ever, leaning out of harm's way and turning his chin at the last second, watching Wepner's gloves sail by.
Chuck Wepner. Don't underestimate the speed and power and tremendous boxing ability of Muhammad Ali. Ali now will take a quick shot. Evidently there was some sort of a kick there, and Ali and Wepner made friends over it.
He landed thunderous counters, testing Wepner's rock-hard chin in the process, pole countering with hard right hands.
Yeah, he's pushing his punch right through into Webner's nose. Like that time he almost swallowed his mouthpiece.
These punches stopped Wepner in his tracks, but he was still there, a much tougher puzzle than anyone, including Ali, had anticipated. Ali had done his best to end it early. But Wepner would not stop lumbering forward. Barely slowing through 8 rounds of punishment, even if he didn't enjoy the same skill level as his fictional counterpart. Even more frustrating for Ali, Chuck's ability to just eat Ali's shots meant that he could throw back without missing a beat. Several times Ali landed a clean right, and Wepner would just keep punching like it didn't happen, landing a hard right on Ali just a moment later. As occasional as these shots were, and as iron as Ali's chin was, his 6'5" behemoth's punches were still bothering him. They would bother anybody. By the 9th round, the fight, thanks to Wepner's otherworldly toughness, had been much more entertaining than the newspapers and boxing experts had expected. That said, it was still pretty much smooth sailing for the greatest. But then, Wepner reminded the world why boxing is such a beautiful game. Anything can happen. He stepped in with a pair of hanging jabs, before clubbing a hard right to Ali's midsection, sending him careening to the mat. The broadcasters, the crowd, and Ali himself couldn't disguise their total disbelief. Not only was Wepner still there, he had knocked down perhaps the greatest fighter to ever live. In Ali's mind, he couldn't believe the ref was counting a blatant trip as an official knockdown. And in fact, Wepner had stepped on his foot when he hit the body shot. But regardless of what sent Ali down, Wepner had put him there. And in that moment, Chuck had reached beyond his upper limit, reminding the world that if you show up, give it your all, and never give up, you can achieve something that no one else had ever dreamed you could. This was Wepner's Rocky moment. To the soundtrack of a roaring crowd and a counting ref, Ali climbed to his feet. He immediately met Wepner in the center, fighting with a renewed purpose: revenge. Chuck went back to work, punching in unison with Ali's counters. But now Ali was serious. Sitting down on his punches, he slammed Wepner with a stout left hook. Wepner was clearly rattled and had to catch himself on the ropes as he stumbled forward. Ali pursued, but Wepner was resilient to the punishment. Showing insane mental toughness, he battled his way off the ropes. Getting clipped by leather and swatting at air, he still, astonishingly, ended the round by pushing Ali back to mid-ring. And over the next 4 rounds, Wepner continued to hold on. Ali landed combination after combination, casting heaps of damage.
Ali is serious as cancer and more direct as a heart attack at this point.
You're exactly right there.
Still, Wepner wouldn't give up, sauntering into range to wing haymakers. The crowd watched on the edge of their seats, wondering if Wepner could pull off the same feat again. But Ali at this point fought with an almost manic desire to put Wepner down. But no one, not George Foreman, nor Sonny Liston, had been able to drop Wepner before. That didn't stop Ali from trying. Throwing so hard in the 12th, he spun himself in a circle. Wepner, ever bold, threw up his hands and taunted him. Ali tried walking Wepner into shots, caught him with lightning-fast lead hands, and even threw body hooks, an extreme rarity for the champion. But Wepner kept throwing.
You ever watch Ezra Charles in his heyday?
Yes, I did.
Ali got that same kind of razor.
Ali would land 10 punches, and Wepner would still be right there to manage a big shot of his own. Even though they were rare, they still did damage. Even in the 14th round, Wepner, now trying to make out his opponent through eyes that were nearly shut, was still careening towards Ali.
It kind of bothers me, the fact that Webner just won't go down.
After 42 minutes of lopsided abuse, Chuck landed maybe his best counter, slipping far to the left, moving towards Ali's cross to land a tremendous cross of his own. And then, somehow, the 15th and final round arrived. This was Ali's last chance to get even. For Wepner, crossing the finish line would mean the culmination of a dream. He had given his all. For him, hearing the final bell would sound just as sweet as, and new. He would have gone 15 rounds with Muhammad Ali. Something no one had ever believed he was capable of doing. The bell rang out for the final time. Ali was incensed. He went completely berserk with unending flurries, throwing with bad intentions. He simply would not stop, but neither would Chuck. He threw lightning-fast flurry after lightning-fast flurry. Somehow, Wepner kept coming. Until Ali stepped back and connected with a hook cross combination. After 15 rounds of chipping at Wepner's granite chin, it finally exploded into pieces. Chuck wobbled, the world spinning, somehow still standing. Ali drove forward, again spinning himself in a circle. But this time, Wepner was not capable of taunting Ali. He was completely focused on survival, if in that moment he even knew where he was. Ali clubbed him against the ropes. Wepner somehow momentarily escaped, but he stumbled forward, eyes on the floor. He got his bearings and turned towards Ali, just in time to see the glove that sent him down for the first and only time of his professional career. Wepner clung to the ropes and tried to climb them like a ladder, desperate to survive the last 19 seconds of the fight. In the movie, Rocky gets back up for one last push against Apollo, but in reality, the referee had seen enough. Even though Wepner didn't hear the final bell, his toughness and dogged determination shocked and inspired the world. In modern-day boxing, it's easy to forget that winning isn't everything. Not in the grand scheme of things. What people remember is how you fought. To paraphrase my favorite philosopher, in great attempts, it is glorious even to fail. Wepner's incredible effort inspired Sylvester Stallone to write Rocky, a movie that, in turn, inspired millions of people around the world to keep going towards their dream, even when things are their toughest. And if you love in style, skill, and personality, there has never been and will never be a boxer quite as astonishing as the greatest, Muhammad Ali. Ali's boxing was mesmerizing, drawing in massive crowds and infuriating his unfortunate opponents. He did things that simply should not have worked and made them look easy. As with his politics and personality, Ali's boxing method was uncompromising, brave, and indisputably brilliant. So many tactics, advanced components honed over years, made up a style that was both brutal and tasteful, completely unique but seamless and well built. Every bizarre technique a stepping stone to the next. And his magnum opus, most will agree, was his near-flawless 3-round victory over Cleveland Big Cat Williams, his 6th opponent since taking the championship. Muhammad would put on display every component of his skill set, serving as an impromptu lesson in how to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. So let's take a close look at how the culmination of these techniques all came together. Flashy as always, Ali danced before the fight, revealing what would become a signature element of not only this fight, but his entire style. The bell rang, and the butterfly floated around the ring. The greatest was a man of extremes, and his footwork was no different. As he danced, he alternated between an extremely narrow and extremely open stance. The narrow stance kept him closed off, protected, and safe. The wide stance left him very open and vulnerable. However, he could more easily dart to either side in an instant. From his narrow stance, Ali could lean far back to evade punches. His distance control was incredible, almost superhuman. He could even turn his chin to allow punches to just skim past his cheek. From his open lateral position, he could duck side to side, even changing to southpaw to strafe away. All of this was meant to get Williams tired, frustrated, and overreaching with his punches. Muhammad was so good that he could feint attacks to bait punches, just to evade them. It's hard to imagine just how infuriating this must have felt as his opponent. Seeing a man break every single fundamental rule of boxing, hands completely down, daring you to even touch him, and you still just can't. After a minute or so, Ali had tapped into the deep rhythm that made up the roots of his entire style. Now that he had found his groove, it was time to go on the attack. From his sideways stance, he shot out jabs, whipping them out from his low guard to smash into Williams' body and head. With his cross step, hop, and deep lean, Ali broke the foundations of traditional boxing. Inspired by watching footage of Sugar Ray Robinson pulling off tap dancing moves in the ring, Ali's interpretation was a more streamlined, but equally thrilling sight to behold. Williams had had enough. He cornered Ali, looking to run him into a body hook as he tried to exit. It was at that moment that Ali unveiled his signature shuffle, rapidly switching stances to smoothly step out into a hard body jab. He followed with a whirling hook that still beat Cleveland's right, then fitted in a tight check hook, smashing it into Williams as he tried to close the distance. Although it looked flashy for the sake of flash, Ali's shuffle had made Williams pause for a split second. The shuffle provided endless possibilities. And as Ali had told Tyson's coach, Cus D'Amato, his opponents had no idea what he was about to do when he used it. Ali resumed his dance of death, lashing out with his jab and lead hook from all angles to pierce Williams' guard, his lead hand fencing like a rapier, whirling around, edging in between, rising up from underneath, knifing out like a back fist. Each time Ali got close, he would pin Williams' elbow. It was advanced tactics like these that allowed Ali to keep his hands low and his chin proudly lifted in defiance of tradition. Insane head movement played a role as well. Ali expertly found openings to target in the blink of an eye. And when there wasn't one, he tore apart Williams' guard to make one. Ali displayed his bizarre footwork once again, mostly targeting the body. He backed off, then decided he wasn't done yet, wrapping Williams' head before exiting from southpaw. For the last 30 seconds of the round, Ali went back to dancing, picking Williams apart from long range. As bad as Ali was making Williams look, in the second he briefly reminded everyone why he deserved to be fighting the champion. The big cat swatted Ali with a tight hook, then potted him with a well-timed jab. Ali check-hooked, but Williams' right fired right back with a clubbing counter, but Ali expertly pulled, leaning far back to let the punch breeze right past from southpaw. He then stepped back to orthodox to keep dancing. But Cleveland landed another heavy jab, and Ali had had enough. He lowered his hands and stood squared up right in front of him, daring Williams to hit him. When he tried, Ali weaved back and forth in a figure eight. Sometimes the best tactic is to just reset, and by doubling down and taking more risks, Ali had rocked Cleveland's confidence. From there it was smooth sailing. Ali picked away with his jab, and performed his signature shuffle. This time, Williams attacked. Ali slipped with the shuffle, as if he knew which punch Cleveland was about to throw, then strafed away, framing from southpaw as he did. Williams gave chase, and Ali stopped short, running Cleveland into a 1-2-3 like the start of a classic rock song. Now Williams charged, furious, and Ali retorted while moving backwards. Both men grew more aggressive, one out of desperation, the other because it was working. Ali repeated the same feat, knocking Williams down with an almost casual retreating right. Williams got up and did a decent job defending, calmly blocking and slipping. But Ali could pick up on openings in a split second and angle his punches to take advantage. He circumvented his competitor's guard and ran Williams into a stunning shovel hook. Williams went down again, but perhaps the big cat did have 9 lives. Showing great heart, he rose and bravely went on the attack. Ali seemed to take this personally, laying his hands upon Cleveland with great vengeance and furious anger. Ali pierced through, tore down, obliterated his guard to slam in one final right. Or so it might have been. But the bell sounded the end of the round, and Williams had a full minute to recover. The break must have felt all too brief for Williams. The two rose and heard what would turn out to be the final bell of the fight. In round 3, Ali displayed the last piece of the puzzle and perhaps the most powerful element of his style. His risky but earth-shaking counters. The two heavyweights met mid-ring. Williams gave chase, and Ali just avoided a reaching jab by turning his head away at the last moment. With Williams overextended, Ali drove home a long leaned hook behind his ear. Williams tried once more, and once more, Ali turned his chin away in the nick of time. A moment later, the same counter missed, but his follow-ups hit home. And now Williams was all but done, and Ali unleashed his full potential, shining with the brilliance of boxing's brightest star, his performance echoing across generations to inspire future greats like Hearns, Leonard, Holmes, and Iron Mike Tyson, who would see this as Ali's most influential and brilliant performance. Cleveland Williams had dealt with a lot of trials in his life, but he had fought his very hardest and could not be faulted for falling so quickly against Ali at the height of his prime. Nonetheless, the fight had been a beautiful symphony of violence that built up in intensity until crescendoing with the final display of skill and dominance. Back in the golden age of heavyweights, the world was full of talented contenders of all different styles and backgrounds. Of these warriors, only one was the most notoriously loved and hated. In 1973, Ali was on the comeback trail after his loss to the legendary bob and weave powerhouse, Joe Frazier. Ali had fought 10 of the world's best in just 2 years. And now, he was just one fight away from clinching a fight with the current champion, Big George Foreman. The only man that stood in his way was a relatively unknown Ken Norton. Although Norton was a formidable contender with a unique style and the infamous Eddie Futch as his coach, few gave him any kind of chance. And that included Ali, who expected to run through Norton the same way he had all the others. But Ali should have been worried. Very worried. Like Frazier, Norton combined a crossguard with low-line head movement, often turning a catch into a full-on crossblock. But where Frazier had his powerhouse left hook, Norton was incredibly adept at cutting off the ring, and showcased intelligent combinations and sharp counterpunching. How this all worked against Ali's cross-stepping jab and precise turn slips and counters, people would just have to wait and find that out on the night. The night came, the two went to their corners, and Ali was certain of an easy victory that would herald his second ascent to the heavyweight throne. It was apparent right away that this fight would not go according to script. Ali normally used his lead hand to soften up opponents over several rounds. But Norton was consistently beating Ali to the punch. It seemed impossible, but in fact, it was all part of Eddie Futch's plan. Futch had noticed that Ali flared his rear hand as he jabbed. So Futch told Norton not to worry about evading, and instead jab with Ali. And as simple as his plan was, it's often the simple strategies that are the most effective. Norton's more solid base ensured that Ali got the worst of the dual exchange. And Norton's rear crossblock would deflect the majority of the damage. But aside from having one of the greatest coaches in history, Norton had also done his own homework. He had noticed while studying Ali's prior fights that he had a tell.
His pec twitched just before he threw a jab. It would take insane reflexes to time this. But Norton happened to have insane reflexes. Combined with stellar head movement, Norton had both the ability and the confidence to brashly press forward. He managed to catch the butterfly on the ropes in the very first round. However, Ali proved he had the strength to walk Norton back to center ring, just as he had when he was a young man taking on the fearsome champion Sonny Liston. It would take more than one good round to intimidate a fighter as accomplished as Muhammad Ali. In the second, Norton stuck to the game plan, while Ali hoped to stand at mid-range and simply outbox him. Ali feinted, taunted, but without his jab, Norton proved Ali's equal or better. It was Ali of all people who looked awkward, and Norton was able to land 2 straight rights with barely any setup. This was unheard of, and for those watching live who had no idea about Norton's game plan, it must have seemed as if Ali was completely washed. In reality, Norton was just much, much better than people had given him credit for. The two traded leading rights, both missing, until Norton feinted his way into position to land a hard roundhouse right that slammed into Ali's jaw, knocking him back into the ropes. Ali again managed to wrestle his way to mid-ring, but there was no doubt that round 2 had gone to Norton. But 2 rounds do not make a fight, and Ali had yet to bring out his best weapon. After more of the same, he decided it was finally time to dance. Ali's quick lateral movement lent him new angles, and he was now too far to the inside for Norton to beat him to the punch. What's more, he was now too sideways for Norton to time him by watching the twitch in his torso. Now that Ali had his jab back, he did what he always did. He used his jab to incite a reaction, then made his opponent regret that reaction. Like replacing the broken gear in a clock, Ali's jab allowed the entire machinery of his style to once again come to life. Ali's rhythmic bouncing with occasional off-tempo beats kept Norton constantly guessing. Once Norton had lined up his shot, Ali was already gone, and Norton was left swinging at air. Ali was mostly able to avoid the corners, and even countered Norton as he tried to box him in, connecting with hard crosses and uppercuts. To those watching, it seemed that perhaps the first 2 rounds had been nothing but a fluke. But in the fourth, Norton found a way inside Ali's defenses, turning a half-hearted downward parry into a hard lead cross. Turning a parry into a real punch is a classic tactic. It works so well because the fighter's hand is already halfway to his target before the real shot is thrown. This one punch seemed to drain Ali of all of his newfound energy, and Norton was able to corner him moments later. He pounded a hard right into Ali's midsection, setting up an uppercut to the chin. Ali tried to shell up, but Norton's roundhouse rights and looping body shots got around Ali's subpar high guard. Ali went back to boxing at mid-range, but again lost most of the exchanges. It could be said that Norton had exposed that most of Ali's style had been built around his jab. But exposed may be a bit inaccurate, as many had already worked out that Ali depended entirely on his lead hand to control the ring. It's just that no one had ever been able to do anything about it. Until now. Just as Foreman had taken away Frazier's legendary hook by denying him the head movement he used to set it up, Norton was demolishing the rest of Ali's style by tearing down the foundation upon which it was built. The bell announced the end of the fourth, and Norton walked back to his corner confident that he was going to take out the great Muhammad Ali. So in the fifth, Ali tried yet another of his classic tactics, drawing punches to set up counters. Similar to his fight with Zora Foley, Ali leaned in to tempt Norton to punch. Ideally, Ali could slip inside of his opponent's jab to land a cross over his shoulder. The best thing about this was that while jabbing first would help Ali set up his counter, it wasn't necessary. So at first, Ali's new tactic worked beautifully. But Norton quickly wised up. He feinted off rhythm to disguise his jabs, making it incredibly difficult for Ali to time him. Ali took Norton's jabs on the chin and hit air when he bit on Norton's feints. By the middle of the round, it was Norton who was landing all of the rights, disguising his punch by blending it into his back and forth head movement. But then, Norton got sloppy and threw a jab with no setup. Ali managed his second hard counter. Norton responded by charging in with hard hooks and jabs, stealing Ali's initiative. But moments later, Ali feinted a right to set up a real one. Norton, however, had no respect for Ali's power and came forward once again to dominate the remainder of the round. Norton built on his success over the next few rounds, ironically putting on a masterclass on how to control a fight with the jab. He feinted, double jabbed, and even tripled up. He set up hard crosses and stiff, looping lefts. Ali fought back the best he could, but he didn't seem to know any solutions to the problems Norton was handing him. As the two men took their 1-minute break between rounds, the announcer noticed that Ali was rubbing his face. At some point in the fight, Norton must have badly damaged Ali's jaw, but Ali didn't know the meaning of the word quit, and went back out to try and take back the fight. After eating a hard hook at the start of the 8th, Ali decided to go back to the only thing that had worked for him. He danced around the ring, sniping at Norton with laser-sharp jabs. The deep inside angle allowed him to flank Norton, circumventing his rear cross blocks. All in all, the 8th was a dominant round for Ali. With 4 rounds left to work, it looked as if Ali might be able to take back the fight. But Ali inexplicably went back to the middle of the ring in the 9th. While he initially found success with the same counter he had before, he got the worst of it for the remainder of the round. Perhaps he was looking for one good shot out of sheer desperation. Or perhaps the damage he had already accumulated was sapping his usually stellar cardio. One thing was for sure, Norton was showing the entire world that they had underestimated him. In an era of great heavyweights, his name belonged near the top of the list. But in the 10th, it was Norton who acted as if he were behind on the scorecards. Ali found the strength to go back to dancing, and Norton lobbed every punch in the book at him, throwing with bad intentions. Ali was slick as always, darting out of the way just in time. But all it took was one good jab from Norton to stick Ali to the ropes. Norton cornered Ali multiple times, pummeling him with punishing blows to the midsection. Ali tried to use angles to drive Norton into punches after Norton's wild swings had missed. But Norton deftly adjusted and countered from new angles himself. The two both displayed brilliant defense, but Ali appeared to get the worst of it. Most would have to watch in slow motion to notice that Ali was deflecting the majority of Norton's strikes. But when it came to body shots, Norton was undoubtedly finding the mark. And perhaps it was these body shots that forced Ali to once again stand and exchange center ring. But this time, something was different. For the first time, Ali's punches were finding their mark. Maybe Ali's circling jabs had worn down Norton enough for his harder punches to get through. The 11th would be telling. The two came out of their corners, and as he had done so many times before, Ali reached deep inside himself and pulled out a can of whoop-ass. Ali kept up the pressure with his circle and jab tactic. but he also bounced back and forth while at mid-ring, constantly changing angles and altering his timing to keep Norton guessing. He moved just out of range of Norton's attacks, only to quickly rebound back and catch him with counters. When Norton ducked in, he stopped short to drive a hard uppercut into his chin. On the ropes, Ali controlled Norton's head to disrupt his balance and send his punches off course. The Ali of old, absent all night, had finally returned. But was it too little too late? If Ali could build on his success, maybe he could take Norton out. But he only had one round left to do it, and Norton was not eager to let the performance of a lifetime go to waste. He had worked far too hard to get to this point. He would not let this fight slip through his fingers. Ali looked to repeat his performance, but Norton came out strong. Looking to make a statement, Norton cornered Ali again and again. Ali looked to dance once again, but Norton managed to time one of the first jabs he threw, covering distance by stepping into a hard intercepting right. All Norton needed was to break Ali's momentum for a split second. He stalked forward, cornering Ali and unloading heavy hooks to the ribs. But this time, Ali did not stall. He continued circling, setting up power shots off of his jabs. However, this round, Norton's guard was proving far more resilient. Norton expertly blocked, slipped, and parried, using active defense to accurately deflect every punch. Taking no damage himself, Norton was better able to focus on tracking Ali's head movement. Whenever Ali's back touched the rope, Norton pulverized his midsection. Ali tried his best, looking for that one punch to pull him out of the fire, but Norton seemed to be inside his rhythm, timing shot after shot to intercept Ali's legendary head movement. With 30 seconds left, it was Ali who looked to be in danger of getting knocked out. With just a few seconds remaining, Ali pushed Norton away and threw all that he had left, but Norton threw with him, punctuating the end of the fight with a beautifully timed rear hook to Ali's temple. The bell rang, and the world looked on in disbelief. The greatest had been soundly beaten. His monumental rise back up the ranks halted just as he was about to cross the finish line. However, this was far from the end of the story. While Ali was at the hospital getting treated for a broken jaw, a number of incredible events took place that would change history forever. First, Foreman's manager told Ali that he would still get a shot at the title after Norton if he just hung back and took no more fights. And second, Ali refused him. Although it might take longer, he would rematch Norton instead and prove to the world he was still the greatest. As Ali left the hospital, he received a note from an anonymous spectator of the fight. It read, "The butterfly's wings have been clipped. The bee has lost its stinger. You're finished." Stay tuned for a breakdown of the epic rematch. For the Modern Martial Artist, this has been David Christian, wishing you happy training.